Hello and namaste, students. I'm sure you all are doing fine and definitely looking forward to this new academic year as much as we teachers are. Due to unavoidable circumstances, we all are unable to get back to our usual school classrooms. But as we all know, learning must go on, right? So, students, let's take this as an opportunity and move on positively. We begin our learning process this year through the virtual window. Each class of virtual teaching will include explanation of the lesson, reference material like images, video links, audio clips, followed by worksheet. Please maintain all written material in a notebook or file sheets as they will be assessed. From this year onwards, we are going to refer Bal Bharati as our regular course book. So, are you ready? Let's begin at the countdown of 3, 2, 1. This is Ashwini Potnis, and I welcome you all to our first English class. Today, we begin with the first lesson of Unit 1, Who's the Greatest? We will study this lesson in two modules. Today, we will read and understand Module 1. This module will contain PowerPoint presentation, YouTube video link, and worksheet. The stories of Akbar and Birbal are famous, and you all are well versed with these stories. Children's all time favorite, right? So, moving on. Emperor Akbar was one of the most famous king of the world who brought love, peace, and equality among his people. Akbar's court had a group of 9 extraordinary people known as Navaratnas, and one of them was Birbal, who was known for his honesty, wit, and intelligence. Children, what are we going to learn from this lesson? Yes, you all know that such stories always give us a valuable lesson. So, we are going to learn that however great a person is, a child is the best and greatest creation made by God in this world. We should always give an honest opinion whenever we are asked, even if it's not in our favor, and always stand by it. So, we begin the Unit 1.2 Bal Bharti, page 2, Who's the Greatest? Emperor Akbar or Akbar the Great is known as one of the greatest rulers in the world, not just because he had a vast empire, a very strong army, untold wealth, but because he was a good human being. He cared for his subjects. He had a great respect for scholars, writers, poets, and artists belonging to different religions. He was a patron of art and culture. The 9 gems or Navaratnas in his court were famous. Many people believe that of these 9 gems, Birbal was the closest to the emperor's heart. Let us see the explanation now. Akbar was one of the greatest rulers, not just for his wealth and army, but because he was very kind, helpful, and good human being. He cared for his people. He had many great men in his court. There were writers, scholars, poets, and artists, and they were his 9 gems. One of them was Birbal, who was very intelligent and was the emperor's favorite. Emperor Akbar always encouraged and appreciated art and culture. Emperor Akbar treated all his religions equal. We continue reading. Akbar loved to pose interesting questions or problems in his court, and Birbal never failed to come up with an equally interesting answer. We don't know whether all the Akbar and Birbal stories that we hear today have any basis in history. They have been handed down over generations, mainly by word of mouth. Here are two of them. Let us look at the explanation now. Akbar always posed questions to his courtiers, and Birbal always gave the right answer with a touch of humor in it. We all have been hearing the stories of Akbar and Birbal for many years, and they have been narrated from one generation to another. We continue reading. One day, the emperor entered the court with a very serious expression on his face. As soon as he was seated, he said, I have a question for all of you. What should be the punishment for someone who pulls my mustache? The court was stunned. Pull the emperor's mustache? It was unheard of. Flog him, give him 50 lashes of the whip, exclaimed one noble man. That's not enough. Put him in jail without food and water, said another. Let us see the explanation now. One day, Akbar asked his courtiers as to what punishment should be given to someone who pulled his mustache. The courtiers were shocked and surprised as they could not imagine that someone could do this to the emperor. They gave their suggestions like give 50 whip lashes to the offender or to put him in the jail without food and water. We continue reading page number 3. Whip him, beat him, hang him, cut off his offending hands. The agitated courtiers began to cry out. Only Birbal was silent. He was even smiling a little. What do you say, Birbal? What is your opinion? In my opinion, O giver of peace to the world, the offender should be given his favorite sweetmeats. Now let us see the explanation. Children, here when Birbal says, O giver of peace to the world, he is referring to Emperor Akbar, right? Okay, so some courtiers were really very angry and suggested that the offender should be beaten up or his hands should be cut off. All of them were really angry and upset, but Birbal was smiling and calm. When Birbal was asked about his opinion, he did not care for any favors that he may gain and gave a very honest reply. He suggested that the offender should be gifted with his favorite sweetmeats. We continue reading. Raja Birbal, are you out of your mind? Give sweetmeats for such a grave offense? The courtiers began to say. Birbal smiled and offered an explanation. Yes, who would be so bold as to pull the emperor's mustache? Only his own grandson. When Akbar heard this, he burst out laughing because that is exactly what had happened in the morning. The courtiers ridiculed and wondered whether Birbal was out of his mind to suggest such a thing. But Birbal stood by his opinion, smiled, and replied confidently that this daring act could have been done only by a person who was very, very close to Akbar, and that It has to be his grandson. On hearing this, Akbar was very happy and he began laughing because that was exactly what had happened. Once again, Emperor's question was answered in a humorous way by Birbal. So, children, note that Birbal gave an honest opinion even though when he was ridiculed by the others. As we have completed the reading and explanation of Module 1, let us go through the glossary, the meanings of the new words in this module. Vast to a very great extent. Untold, not narrated. Patron of art and culture is a person who appreciates and supports art and culture. Word of mouth, passing information orally from one person to another. Expression, a look on someone's face. Stunned, to be shocked or to be surprised. To flog, to whip someone. Exclaimed, to say or shout with strong emotions. Nobleman, a person born into high class of rank or title. Offense is to break a law or a rule, and a person who does this is known as an offender. Agitated, disturbed, and angry. Grave, something very serious. So now let us go through the summary of what we studied in Module 1. Emperor Akbar was one of the greatest ruler. Birbal was his favorite among the 9 gems in his court. Akbar liked to ask questions to his courtiers, and Birbal was usually the one to come up with witty answers. One day, the emperor asked his courtiers as to what should be the punishment extended to a person who pulls his mustache. Birbal cleverly replied that the offender should be given his favorite sweets. The courtiers were surprised. Birbal explained that this could happen only because it must be the emperor's grandson who had the courage to pull his mustache. Upon hearing this, Emperor Akbar burst out laughing. The exact incident had taken place earlier that day. So, children, is the lesson and the glossary clear now? Can we draw a conclusion from what we just read? Yes, definitely. We can say that a child is supreme when compared to any great power. We have completed Module 1 and we shall continue with the lesson in the next class. Please refer to the attached worksheet and follow the instructions accordingly. I hope you all had an interesting and informative virtual learning experience. I'm sure you all enjoyed this different experience as much as I did as a teacher. So, dear children, stay home, stay safe. Thank you and namaste.